Welcome to War Bios, the podcast where we delve into the lives of history's most fascinating military leaders. Today, we embark on a thrilling journey through the life of Richard the Lionheart, one of the most iconic figures of the Middle Ages. This legendary King of England, renowned for his bravery, military prowess, and unwavering dedication to the Crusades, left an indelible mark on history. Born on September 8, 1157, in Oxford, England, Richard was the third son of King Henry II and Eleanor of Aquitaine, one of the most powerful women of the medieval era. This birthright bestowed upon him a complex web of familial relationships, territorial claims, and dynastic ambitions that would shape his early years and future path. As a member of the Plantagenet dynasty, Richard was destined for greatness, but it was his parents' tumultuous relationship and the intricate politics of the time that would prove instrumental in forging his character. Growing up, Richard was immersed in the rich cultural heritage of his mother's Aquitaine and the martial traditions of his father's England. His childhood was marked by frequent moves between the royal courts of England, France, and Aquitaine, exposing him to diverse languages, customs, and ways of life. This nomadic upbringing instilled in Richard a unique blend of adaptability, linguistic skills, and an appreciation for the complexities of medieval politics. The sound of clanging swords, the smell of freshly polished armor, and the sight of majestic castles would become etched in his memory, shaping his future as a warrior king. Under the guidance of his mother Eleanor, Richard developed a deep love for music, poetry, and chivalry, essential components of a noble education during this era. His early years were also marked by a strong emphasis on martial training, with Richard quickly demonstrating a natural aptitude for arms and armor. This combination of cultural refinement and military prowess would become the hallmark of his future endeavors. The historical context of Richard's early years was defined by the struggles of his family to maintain control over their vast territories. His father, King Henry II, was engaged in a series of conflicts with neighboring kingdoms, while his mother's Aquitaine faced threats from both internal power struggles and external enemies. This volatile environment taught Richard the importance of strategic alliances, cunning diplomacy, and decisive military action, lessons that would serve him well throughout his life. The memory of his father's campaigns, the sound of drums beating in the distance, and the sight of armies clashing on the battlefield would stay with Richard forever, shaping his understanding of the harsh realities of war. As Richard grew older, he became increasingly involved in the governance of his family's territories, particularly in Aquitaine, where he was appointed as the Duke by his mother. This responsibility not only honed his administrative skills, but also deepened his understanding of the intricate web of feudal obligations, territorial disputes, and noble alliances that characterized medieval politics. The weight of responsibility, the burden of leadership, and the thrill of power would all become familiar to Richard as he navigated the complex landscape of medieval Europe. The early influences on Richard's life were multifaceted and far-reaching. His family's history, marked by both glorious triumphs and bitter conflicts, instilled in him a strong sense of destiny and a desire to carve out his own legacy. The cultural and martial traditions of his time, combined with the complex geopolitics of the era, shaped Richard into a formidable leader, equipped with the skills, knowledge, and ambition necessary to leave an indelible mark on history. The echoes of his family's past, the whispers of his mother's guidance, and the roar of his own ambition would all contribute to the making of Richard the Lionheart, one of the most legendary figures of the Middle Ages. The experiences, relationships, and lessons learned during this period would forever shape his character, informing the decisions he made as a commander, a king, and a leader of men. One notable example of Richard's nascent leadership was the suppression of a rebellion by the Viscount of Demise in 1176. This decisive victory not only solidified Richard's position as Duke of Aquitaine, but also demonstrated his ability to navigate the labyrinthine web of alliances and rivalries that characterized medieval politics. The Viscount's rebellion, sparked by a desire for greater autonomy and fueled by resentment towards Richard's centralized authority, was a microcosm of the challenges he would face throughout his reign. As Richard transitioned into adulthood, his involvement in governance deepened, and he began to assert his authority over the fractious nobles of Aquitaine. The region, known for its rich cultural heritage and strategic importance, was a hotbed of intrigue and power struggles. The news of Saladin's conquest of Jerusalem in 1187 marked a watershed moment in Richard's life, sparking a renewed call for a crusade to reclaim the Holy Land. This development would set him on a path that would ultimately define his legacy as a military leader and champion of Christianity. The Third Crusade, launched in 1190, was a complex and multifaceted campaign that involved intricate diplomacy, strategic maneuvering, and brutal warfare. Richard's military prowess was on full display as he led his army through a series of victories, including the capture of Akka in July 1191 and the Battle of Arsuf in September 1191. His decision to focus on capturing the city's port rather than launching a direct assault on the walls proved instrumental in ultimately breaching the defenses. The Battle of Arsuf, fought on the coastal plain near the town of Arsuf, was a masterclass in tactical genius. Richard's army, outnumbered and outflanked by Saladin's forces, was able to secure a decisive victory through a combination of clever maneuvering and brute force. The battle marked a turning point in the campaign, as Richard's army began to push deeper into enemy territory, eventually reaching the outskirts of Jerusalem. One notable aspect of Richard's campaign was his relationship with Saladin, the Sultan of Egypt and Syria, who would become a legendary figure in his own right. Despite being sworn enemies, the two leaders developed a deep respect for each other, engaging in a series of diplomatic exchanges and even exchanging gifts. This peculiar dynamic added a layer of complexity to the conflict, as Richard and Saladin navigated the intricacies of war and diplomacy with a mixture of courtesy and ruthlessness. Their correspondence, which has been preserved for posterity, offers a fascinating glimpse into the minds of these two leaders. Saladin, known for his chivalry and honor, addressed Richard as the King of the Franks, while Richard referred to Saladin as the Sultan of Egypt. Their letters, which dealt with matters ranging from prisoner exchanges to territorial disputes, were marked by a tone of mutual respect and admiration. As the crusade progressed, Richard's army faced numerous challenges, including treacherous terrain, harsh weather conditions, and relentless enemy resistance. The Battle of Jaffa in July 1192 was a particularly significant engagement, as Richard's forces successfully defended the city against a massive Muslim army led by Saladin himself. This victory marked a turning point in the campaign, as Richard's army began to push deeper into enemy territory, eventually reaching the outskirts of Jerusalem. Despite ultimately failing to retake Jerusalem, Richard's crusade had a profound impact on the balance of power in the region, paving the way for future Christian campaigns and cementing his reputation as one of the greatest military leaders of his time. His experiences during the Third Crusade also left an indelible mark on his character, shaping his worldview and informing his decisions as a king and a leader. As Richard prepared to return to Europe in 1192, he was confronted with the news that his brother, John, had been plotting against him, seeking to overthrow him and claim the throne of England for himself. This development would set off a chain of events that would ultimately lead to Richard's downfall, as he became embroiled in a bitter struggle for power with his own family members. The fate of Richard the Lionheart, once the epitome of chivalry and martial prowess, now hung precariously in the balance as the treacherous waters of medieval politics threatened to consume him whole. The outcome would be far from certain, as the Lionheart's legend teetered on the brink of collapse. In the shadows, the players were positioning themselves for the final act. John, Richard's brother, had been secretly gathering support among the nobles, whispering in their ears and fueling their discontent with Richard's rule. The French king, Philip II, was also watching with interest, sensing an opportunity to exploit the divisions within the English monarchy. As Richard navigated the treacherous waters of medieval politics, he was forced to confront the consequences of his own actions. His decision to abandon the Holy Land, leaving behind a trail of unfulfilled promises and unfinished business, had created a sense of disillusionment among his allies and followers. The French king Philip II, who had long been a thorn in Richard's side, sensed an opportunity to exploit the divisions within the English monarchy and launched a series of attacks on Richard's territories in France. Meanwhile, Richard's brother John, who had grown increasingly resentful of his older siblings' dominance, began to secretly gather support among the English nobility. The seeds of rebellion were sown, and it would not be long before they bore fruit. As the situation continued to deteriorate, Richard found himself facing a perfect storm of challenges, with enemies closing in on him from all sides. It was against this backdrop that Richard, ever the warrior king, chose to launch a daring campaign against the castle of Chalus-Cécy-Chabrol in France. The fortress, perched atop a rocky outcropping, was a key strategic location, and its capture would deal a significant blow to Philip's plans. However, as Richard led the charge, he failed to account for the defenders' cunning and determination. On March 26, 1199, while besieging the castle, Richard was struck by a crossbow bolt, which pierced his shoulder and lodged deep within his chest. The wound became infected, and Richard's condition rapidly declined. As he lay on his deathbed, surrounded by his loyal servants and advisors, he showed remarkable courage and dignity, forgiving his enemies and ensuring that those who had stood by him would be rewarded for their service. According to one account, Richard's final words were, "I have often sinned, but I have never lost hope, for I knew that the Lord is merciful and would pardon me." These words offer a poignant glimpse into the character of a man who had spent his life walking the fine line between chivalry and brutality. As the news of Richard's mortal wound spread, his brother John saw an opportunity to seize the throne. He began to muster support among the English nobles, promising them power and influence in exchange for their loyalty. Richard the Lionheart died on April 6, 1199, at the age of 41. His death marked the end of an era, and his legacy would be felt for centuries to come. Despite his flaws and failures, Richard remained a larger-than-life figure, revered by his contemporaries and remembered as one of the greatest kings in English history. As the medieval chronicler Ralph of Coggeshall wrote, "He was a king of great renown, whose name was feared by all who knew him." His strength and courage were unmatched, and his military campaigns will be remembered for generations to come. Today, Richard the Lionheart is remembered as a complex and multifaceted figure, whose life and legacy continue to fascinate historians and scholars. His military campaigns, particularly the Third Crusade, had a profound impact on the balance of power in the Middle East, paving the way for future Christian expeditions and shaping the course of Western history. As a king, Richard was a skilled politician and administrator who implemented significant reforms and strengthened the English monarchy. Despite his many achievements, however, Richard's life was also marked by controversy and tragedy. His conflicts with his family members, particularly his brother John, ultimately led to his downfall, and his reputation was tarnished by accusations of cruelty and ruthlessness. His ideals of chivalry and honor continue to inspire us today, reminding us of the importance of courage, loyalty, and compassion. In many ways, Richard's story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked ambition and the corrupting influence of power. His struggles with his own demons, including his famous temper and tendency towards impulsiveness, offer valuable lessons for leaders and individuals alike. And yet, despite these flaws, Richard remains an enduring figure, a symbol of the human spirit's capacity for greatness and its propensity for error. That's all for today's War Bios. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, I'm General Biography reminding you to keep marching toward victory.